Hi guys, Christine Mann here. So I wanted to talk about chronic fatigue syndrome today because it is something that a lot of people struggle with. If you know someone with fibromyalgia or a lot of other chronic health conditions, they often come hand in hand with chronic fatigue syndrome. And I know a lot of people struggle in understanding this because they can't comprehend not having all the energy they need for a day. I'm the opposite. I can't comprehend having that kind of energy. And all my life, I've kind of had to be careful with how much I do so that I don't pay for it the next day. And chronic fatigue syndrome is very real. So what happens to my body is when I overdo it one day, like I'll do a whole bunch of shopping and I'll get a bunch of errands done and I'll have some kids over to babysit and I'll clean my house and I'll overdo it. And sometimes the energy comes from I ate some sugar or I had some caffeine and I don't even realize that I'm overdoing it. And then the next day I crash and I literally have to do so little the next day to build up my reserves so that I can just function. Chronic fatigue syndrome can look a lot like depression, where you are too tired to brush your teeth, you're too tired to have a shower. Standing there that long to have a shower is like unthinkable when your chronic fatigue syndrome is really bad. And I have days like that. But I wanted to share with you a little bit about how I see chronic fatigue syndrome. And I think there's a lot of stigma out there about this condition where if you have all the energy in the world, you can't comprehend it. And so you kind of judge them as being lazy. Being lazy is something that is common that we are called with common variable with chronic fatigue syndrome. And I wanted to share with you a little bit about the reality of it so that maybe you can have some compassion to the people that are around you that maybe aren't the same as you. So usually what happens when I overdo it, the next day I will be on the couch, like flat on my back, and I will struggle to get out, even just to get changed and brush my teeth. I'll struggle to figure out how to make something to eat that's quick, that I won't have to stand on my feet for very long. Usually with chronic fatigue syndrome, I'll have maybe 2 days a day. Depends on how much I overdo it. And people don't see that part of me. I don't go out in public. Nobody sees that. And it can be very discouraging when you look around and you see all the energy that everybody else has. So always be kind. You don't know where someone's at. Now I'm doing something. I'm taking some natural supplements that I really believe are going to begin to heal this part of my body that causes the chronic fatigue syndrome. And right now I do have a little bit more energy, but I still have to be careful with that because I can still overdo it. So I have started walking regularly, and with chronic fatigue syndrome, you can't just go for a walk for an hour. Like you can't. Or you won't be able to like make supper or clean up after supper. And so I walk for 12 minutes a day right now. And every day, every week, I go up a minute. And that's all I can handle. If I go up too many minutes in a day, then I'll be overdoing it. But if every day I go up, if every week I go up a little bit, and if I walk consistently every day, my body actually builds a tolerance to that amount of energy being expelled, and I can build on it and become more strong and able to do more in my day. So if you have chronic fatigue syndrome, it is so important to get started moving a little bit, because you can build that up, but you have to be really, really careful with it. So I always suggest that people start at like 3 minutes of slow walking or 5 minutes. If you're even bedridden because of your chronic fatigue syndrome, then you're going to want to do some like sitting exercises or laying exercises, but do them every day and slowly build up. You can do it. Those of us with chronic fatigue syndrome, it's not impossible. We can get stronger. We just have to be really wise about how we do it. So I encourage you, if you have chronic fatigue syndrome, you've got to get moving, even just a little bit. But if you do it every day, it will really help you. So that's my take on chronic fatigue syndrome, and I hope that was a bit of a help for you. If you have chronic fatigue syndrome, please reach out to me. I'd love to encourage you and help you any way I can. And if you know someone with it, be gracious and be compassionate to what they're going through, because they really are dealing with something that is very difficult to live with. And you don't want to push them so hard or make them feel embarrassed about something they can't change. So I love you guys, and I hope this was helpful. I hope to hear from you guys. And thanks, those of you who commented.